Hey, we're
All
live.
right, Terry. Hey, we're live. Yeah. So, hey, Terry Duke, the wise man. Rumor has it we might be seeing rates come down in the near future. What's the inside scoop?
I think you bought some bad hopium. So the reality here is, if you look at the bond market already priced in a 25 basis points drop in interest rates. We were running interest rates, conventional interest rates were about 6.75. They're down at about 6.4 now. He may have a slight bump downward, but it's already priced in. Now, if the federal government decides to lower rates 0.5%, then you'll see some movement in interest rates. But we've already seen the movement based on what everybody anticipates the Fed doing. And if you remember a year ago, I started talking about where interest rates would go. When the all the pundits were saying that we were going to have six interest rate cuts for the year. And if you notice, we haven't had one yet. I told you at the point we might have one, but I didn't expect more than one. If we do right now, I expect we'll get a quarter basis point drop in September. I don't think we'll have anything just before the election. And then we might get a Christmas bonus, we might not. But the fundamentals of the economy right now are just too strong to continue to be lowering interest rates. I think we're going to have a small one right now. If unemployment kicks itself up and we see some GDP numbers that are poor, and we see inflation go down a little bit more and consumer spending go down a little bit more, then you might see a second rate cut in December. But in the meantime, the Federal Open Market Committee doesn't want to be accused of party politics. So I don't think they'll do anything at the November meeting, or I guess it's the
So,
end of October meeting. I think that you'll get
so,
the 25 basis points, and that's about it.
so each market obviously is a little bit different. But what are you seeing nationwide in terms of property values? Are we still seeing those come down, or
Well,
has
the
that
interesting
started to
part
kind of
is,
flatten out a little bit? Or
here's how this works. We are seeing, because we have a little bit lower interest rates right now, we are seeing that the bottom end of whatever market it is nationwide, the lower priced homes are getting a lot of competition. The upper priced homes are not getting a lot of competition and having to lower prices. So remembering that when I look at data and I do the forensic analysis, it's important that an average is an average. But if the bottom end of the market, the prices are going up, and the top end of the market, the prices are coming down, we're going to see like what we're hearing from everybody right now. Prices are basically flat. Yeah, they are. But the problem we have is there's not enough sales going on to really drive a market in any particular direction. Okay, so interest rates are where they are. People got back into the market. The top end of the market, prices are being reduced. Nationwide, roughly 50% of all the unsold active inventory right now have had price reductions. Okay. And of the
wow.
ones that are currently in under contract, about 35% of those people had price reductions before they went into the contract. So we can expect that this is kind of the way it's going to be. We have a problem that people don't want to talk about. And I know you wanted me to talk a little bit about this, but the new contracts that everybody across the United States has to use for buyers, for sellers, the way that they dictate commissions, how do you handle open houses, all of those things have not only the real estate agents confused, they have the buyers and sellers confused. A seller
Yeah,
who's
there's
Go
a
ahead.
lot of hubbub on social media right now with that. That went into effect, was it last Saturday or the week before?
Well, the deadline for everybody nationwide was the middle of August. The problem is that there are some areas, that did it much earlier than that, and some areas did it waited till the absolute last minute. So when you look at this, and I preface all this by saying, if a property is going to be listed in the multiple listing service, remember that phrase, then all of these rules apply. If it's not going to be listed in the MLS and it's going to be a pocket listing because you have a hot listing, because you're going to put it in your own social media, you're going to try to double end it, you're going to try to avoid the multiple listing service, maybe you're going to get another real estate agent that's going to be involved in it. All the rules go down the toilet. Okay. The only rule that applies is, what did you do? What was the contract you wrote with your seller? And in that contract, you wrote how much of a commission that seller was willing to pay. Is it a total commission of 3%, 4%, 5%, 6%? And then on an addendum to the listing contract, you put down how much that seller is willing to pay a buyer's agent. However, remember that's in the multiple listing service. If it's you don't put it commissions in the multiple listing service anymore, it does not mean on social media you can't blast it everywhere. Seller willing to pay 4% buyer's agent commission. Or to quote, one of my coaching clients up in Northern California, he goes 2 by 2 by 2. 2% to the listing agent, 2% to the buying agent, and 2% seller concession to the buyer. Wow, that's the same 6%. It's just allocated differently. And he's kicking butt and taking names. We're talking 26 listings now, 26 in a little over 5 months since we instituted that change to his marketing plan. And he's not spending any money. It's on all the social media. He's talking about it. He's on YouTube. He's now been on a couple of the local radio stations. He's got a television interview coming up this weekend. Why, when everybody else is lowering what commissions are, how are you being so successful by raising them? Because everybody is getting a piece. 2% to the buyer's agent, 2% to him as the listing agent, and 2% to a buyer. Imagine how many more people are coming to his houses. A lot, which means all the prices are bidding up. So again, how you approach this thing is very important. Go ahead.
So let me ask you this and rewind a little bit. You said if it's not in the MLS, then those rules do not apply. So you brought up the situation with open houses. Does that mean, because I keep seeing in social media quite a bit, real estate agents are really running into that, and their brokers are telling them that they're going to lose their license if they don't have everyone that comes to an open house sign a buyer's agreement?
That is correct.
How does that factor in?
Well, because it's listed in a multiple listing service. So the multiple listing service dictates that any buyer that comes with a real estate, attached to a real estate agent, must have a signed contract. Okay. And understand when you don't put it in the multiple listing service, the listing agent can show that property to anybody they want to. Why? Because they're not following MLS rules. It's not in the multiple listing service. Now, every potential buyer should be signing a buyer's broker agreement. It hasn't changed. It should always be that way. If you got arrested and you needed a criminal attorney, would you go to court without signing a contract and a retainer agreement with that criminal attorney? Of course not. You would want to know that he was acting in your best interests. Real estate agents for so long have avoided this because they don't know how to sell it. Well, the reality is this contract is going to protect the buyer and it's going to protect the agent to ensure that everybody knows what everybody's doing. Okay, so you asked me about open houses. Let's take an open house. So Chris Maloof decides to run an open house this weekend, and Chris Maloof advertises it everywhere, and he does it in the multiple listing service. And you have some real estate agents that decide to be not necessarily as involved as they should be with their clients. And they see the open house is going to be there. And they tell their clients, hey, there's a new property over on 3rd Street East that looks like it might fit your needs. Why don't you go take a look? They're having an open house. Okay, well, I'm the real estate agent, or Chris is the real estate agent. And the first question that should come out of his mouth is, besides, hey, thank you for coming by, what made you decide to stop? If they say to you, well, our real estate agent sent us over here, or you take it a little step further, you say, great, are you currently represented by a real estate agent? Yes, we are. Can you please provide me with a copy of your contract with your agent? What contract? You have a problem now. You have a real estate agent that is acting incorrectly. You have a buyer that hasn't signed a broker agreement. And a lot of the brokers are going to tell you, you may not show that house unless you get a buyer agency agreement signed from that buyer specifically for that property. And that's what you should have. You should have a bunch of those, either blank to sign with a pen, or have an iPad ready for the thing to go, where it's a 1 week listing, 1 week buyer's agency agreement for that specific property. And then you as the listing agent will be representing that buyer, and it allows you to show them. However, you're going to have some people that are unwilling to sign it. And you have to decide as a real estate agent whether you're going to boot them out of the house. because technically you're violating the new statutes. Technically, your broker is going to tell you you're acting illegally, and you could be doing something that could cause a lot of hot water later. Because if those people showed up just because they were driving by, they had no real estate agent whatsoever that told them to stop by. The listing agent is the procuring cause, and the listing agent is entitled to the buyer's agent commission. That would be the law, because commissions are based on procuring cause. Who procured the buyer to come to the property? Was it the agent representing the buyer who told them to go there? Was it an online advertisement that the listing agent put on Facebook for everybody to see? Was it a buyer's agent who saw the MLS and sent it over there? It is what causing paralysis with buyers is causing paralysis with sellers. When a seller goes there and they talk to a real estate agent, they're like, well, how do we negotiate commissions? Well, this is where everybody's got to change their paradigm. There's only three ways that everybody, real estate agents, are working with commissions now. The first way is what 75% of the agents are doing. They're doing nothing. Okay. My soccer coach in high school said, he who hesitates is lost. So the second one, and again, I'm going to quote the people that are winning a lot. Like I said, my Northern California agent, he stood up. I call it plant your flag marketing. He's telling everybody and his brother exactly what he's willing to do and exactly what it will cost them. Okay. Now, every other real estate agent has to make the decision whether they're going to compete or not. I have another real estate agent here in Southern California. She's down in San Diego County. And prices of the area she's in are 4 million to 10 million. So what did she say? I don't need to make that much money. She's out there. I will list, sell, and include the buyer's agent commission for 2.5%, period. So what is she getting? Her first listing was $7 million. And she ended up double ending it. So she made $200,000 on her first thing out of the box 2 days later. So she's planting her flag on the idea that she's a full service real estate agent. And when I mean full service, her office does professional photography, professional drone. They have a house cleaning service they bring in, a gardener they bring in. They host a neighborhood open house with a chef and hors d'oeuvres and wine. They hold a public open house with a different chef and different appetizers and things. She has a company that does staging for free, and she's doing all of this for 2.5%. So the reality here is what? Every real estate agent in that market now has to compete because they were the 75% that did nothing. Okay. And that 75% include those people that hold out and say, well, I'm not going to take a listing unless it's 3%. Okay, well, that's gone. Okay, that commission dectomy has happened. The third one, and I'm coaching again. I have 1,500 real estate agents that I'm coaching currently. The third one is a better one for people that are really savvy and good negotiators. So this real estate agent, I'll use the one I coached today. She goes out to the property. She does our listing presentation, which I coach, which takes it a lot longer than normal. She goes through the entire process. They come to some agreement what they think the price should be. And then she says, so now that you've seen how we're going to market it, how we're going to work on it together, what price point will probably be the best to sell, what do you think my services are worth on a commission? And then the people tell her they think that she's worth 1%, 2%, 3%. It's completely negotiable. So she's let them make a choice. And as long as they don't pick a 0.5%, she'll work anywhere from 1 to whatever they tell her. And then she says, and based on what we've talked about, how much do you want to pay the buyer's agent in this transaction? And she lets the seller dictate it. Okay, now why is she doing this? Because then it's the seller's decision. The seller's been shown property. They've been shown all the property, how long it was on the market, what commissions were, what the price point was, and done so that it's a very comparative nature. And they've been able to look at it and say, well, that house at 750 is a lot nicer than ours, or wow, they got 750 for that piece of crap. The seller in his mind is now seeing all the competition that's currently there, all the property that's closed in the last 90 days, and they've seen it up close and personal live with the listing agent. And so the listing agent then has negotiated their commission and is ready to go. Those are the only three ways you can handle it. You can let somebody else dictate it, and then you can try to beat it on price, or beat it on service. And that my lady in San Diego County, there's no way to beat it. She's got more than most real estate agents have. So everybody's going to have to compete against her. If you go up there in Northern California, he's a 2x2x2. I guess somebody's going to come along and say, well, they're a 1x1x1, a 1x1x2, a 1x2x2. I don't know what they're going to say, but now everybody has to compete against him. Okay. So this is what the world's going to be.
What are your thoughts on this? There's, again, a lot of posts out on social media that buyer's agents are going to go by way of the dodo bird. Do you see that happening?
I do not. And I'll tell you why. When you really, if you were going to be a high quality buyer's agent, there's an entire high trust interview, we call it Cinto, come into the office, where you go through the needs of the buyer. So, Mr. Jones, you called about the house on 3rd Street East. What was it about the house on 3rd Street East that piqued your interest? Well, it appears to be a big house. Well, why is a big house important to you? Well, I got 4 daughters, and I'd really like to have them have their own bedrooms. Well, wonderful. Are you moving from in a house currently that's in the neighborhood, or is it out of the neighborhood? It's in the neighborhood. So you won't be moving them to schools? No, I will not. What other features do you hope that this house has? Okay. You're going through a high trust, and it turns out they want a big kitchen, a 3-car garage, 5 bedrooms. They want a big backyard because they've got big dogs. He wants RV access because he's got a boat. And my sample person here is actually a real one. He told me, and I need to have a bathroom that has a door on it on the toilet area. I need a separate commode because the only time that I can read Field and Stream with all these women is when I'm in the bathroom, and I like my privacy. Okay. So as a real estate agent, I could tell you exactly what this guy wants. You want to find out if it's 1-story or 2-story. What's the most important room in the house? What's the most important feature about a house? Is it neighborhood? Is it shopping? Is it church? Is it school? What is it? Well, that's something that the listing agent may or may not have time for. But as a buyer's agent, you're going to have it. Now, I coach people into the double ending. You've heard me talk about my group in Florida, the Technicolor Dream Team. They absolutely rock. Okay, they double end 60% of their transactions, and they do it for a reason. It's more commission for them, but then they have more negotiability for commissions. And what happens? They're controlling the outcome. Do I think that a buyer's agent's going to go by the way of the dodo bird? No, but I do not think it will be nearly as prevalent as it has been before, because I think everybody's going to wake up and realize if they lose 30 to 40% worth of the commissions, which is going to happen, the commission dectomy is going to happen, then there's only 2 ways that a real estate agent can make up that lost revenue. They can become a mortgage lender as well, and we're seeing a lot of that, or they can choose to double end.
And we're hiring.
What was that?
And we're hiring.
And of course, that's something that we can do. Again, understanding that a lot of the big mortgage bankers will not accept a loan originator and a real estate agent. So, and the other part to that is they don't have the support systems for a real estate agent that's not truly 100% understanding what it takes to be a loan originator. Our company does. Our company's got, like 45 years of experience, 15,000 transactions on my part alone. Every single transaction is run through my desk and your desk, and make sure that we know what we're doing with. We're working with some of the top lenders in the United States. We have great commissions, we have great service, and we have great lenders to do the loans. So you have great rates to go along with it. So these people win. They have the ability to do both. Now, imagine that we took those real estate agents and we helped them understand how to be a better real estate agent, how to double lend it, and they were also loan originators. They can work themselves into 3 commissions on one transaction done properly. So again, that is the wave that I see to the future. Last comment, and I get to make it, and it's going to be the one that is most difficult. So in the mortgage industry, every single loan that anybody does has the exact same documentation. If they get a loan through you, they get a loan through Wells Fargo, they get a loan through Bank of America, whatever. Every document that buyer would see is exactly the same, just with different numbers. It'll say Bank of America at the top, but how it's all broken out, what order it's in, what it looks like, what it sounds like. The government in the Dodd-Frank renew of the mortgage industry in 2011 took away a lot of the commission and tried to standardize all the forms. That's the exact opposite of what the real estate industry's just done. The real estate industry's just made it completely negotiable. And there are many brokerages out there that are not using any standard forms. They have all their own addendums. They've lawyered up. They've got themselves all covered, which is why you had the comment. Our broker's telling us we're going to be in a lot of legal problems if we don't do this, if we don't do that. Yeah, okay. So when you go to a buyer or you go to a seller, they're looking at different forms. I mean, you told me you recently bought a car. If you went to 2 or 3 dealerships and got to look at the contracts, they would all be different. There is no uniformity to that. So for a buyer and or a seller right now, every form they look at is going to be different, and it's going to be confusing. And the last part to why you talked about why we think that there's going to be issues. Take a regular first-time buyer that's going to be, barely putting their 3.5% together, and they sit down with their real estate agent, and the real estate agent says, hey, here is an agency agreement. We are agreeing that if the seller does not pay for a commission for me, that you are willing to pay for it, whether it's 1%, 2%, 3%. Well, if an average purchase price is $500,000, okay, and that $500,000, 3% of that $500,000 is 15,000. Maybe these people have saved $20,000 and it's taken a lot of work. How are they gonna feel when you say, and if the seller doesn't want to do it, you'll have to pay the extra $10,000? They won't have it. They will walk away, which is what's happened. A lot of people have looked at the new way it's done and feel, because they haven't been taught exactly how this is going to work, that now they're going to be responsible for the buyer's agent commission. And that's another 10,000, 12,000, 15,000 they don't have. And they're going, forget it. I'll stay where I am. The other whammy, and it's a big whammy that most people don't want to acknowledge, in the United States, we've had huge amounts of inflation. Okay, we added $10.8 billion in personal debt last month. Billion with a B. Okay, that's personal debt. Across the United States right now, 10% of all credit card debt is at least 30 days delinquent. 32% of all buyers, potential buy of all people, 32% of all people in the United States paid a regular utility bill with a charge card last month. They paid their gas, their water, their electricity, their phone with a credit card. And it's not just for points. They did that because they don't have the money. Personal savings is now below what it was pre-pandemic. So we don't have as great a buyer pool. We have higher interest rates, higher purchase prices. And so now you're asking them to come up with an extra 1%, 2%, 3% to pay a buyer's agent commission. It's going to be difficult, which is why a real estate agent needs to forensically decide what marketplace they're going to work in. They need to plant their flag on how they're going to represent commissions. They're going to need to put it in writing so they tell these people what they can expect for that commission. What is a buyer's agent supposed to do? What is a buyer's agent going to do to earn that commission? They need to tell them. Well, I go out and I preview houses and I find you the best one, and we sit down, we write it, we take you, show it to you, and we write an offer. And really? Wait a minute. You didn't show, these people didn't show up to any of the open houses. They didn't drive you around. They just wrote a contract. They kept sending you to the property without them. No, the way that the rules are set up is a buyer, even virtually, is not supposed to see any property unless there's already a buyer agency agreement signed. Okay, that's the way that the rules are all set up now. Okay, so we have to just help the real estate agents abide by that. Look, I'll tell you point blank. We had a big, huge underwriting meeting this morning with one of my coaching clients. And guess what? Buyer agency agreements are now going to be a required document for the lender. Because if that buyer is paying it, okay, they have to factor that in the cash to close. If the seller is paying it, it's considered a concession. And that concession has to be compared to what the maximum concession is per loan type. On a 95% conventional, the seller maximum concession is 3%. If you use 2 of that to pay the buyer's agent commission, that means that the seller only has 1% that they could actually pay to help that buyer get in the house. That's not a good thing. It's 4% on a VA transaction unless it's towards discount points. On an FHA transaction, it's 6%. So this is going to affect it. And for underwriting for a mortgage company, we have to know what it's going to be. So
Yep.
again, so what other
All good
questions can
stuff.
answer? Yep. The only other comment
No.
that I have for everybody in the real estate community right now is, right now the number of transactions is minuscule compared to what it was. Okay. So if in your community you used to do 300, 400, 500 transactions in the community a month, and now you're seeing it be 100 or 150, if you want a 1% market share right now and you want to grow it to 2, it's a heck of a lot easier in a slow market than it is in a fast market. If there's 100 transactions in your community and you have a 1% market share, you're doing 1 transaction a month. To get to a 2% market share, you only have to add 1 a month. If you want a 5% market share, you only have to add 4 a month. If there was 400 going in a month, a 1% market share would be 4, a 5% market share would be 20. It'd be pretty dang hard to get from 4 to 20 in a short amount of time. It's very easy to get from 1 to 5 in a short amount of time. This is the time to dig in, plant your flag, tell everybody what you're going to do, set it up so that the community knows exactly how you work. Tell them what you do. Today I'm helping clean a house. Today we're junking out a house. Today we're staging a house. Today I'm out looking for a buyer, previewing property for a buyer. Help the buyers and sellers understand what it is that you do as a real estate agent to justify your commission, and publish it. Publish it everywhere you can. I told you I have one client that put a GoPro on a baseball cap, and she gets in her car, and when she goes to look at, she's going to go out and get ready for a listing presentation, she does that, and then she narrates over it. She narrates it over in a 60-second spot. And she's zooming through all the streets, but she says, well, I'm driving through this neighborhood and I'm seeing parks and schools and shopping and churches. Oh, and now I've turned onto the street. And if you notice, wow, there's a lot of people out walking dogs. There's a lot of kids, whatever. She's making exactly what she's doing an art form so that the buyers feel comfortable. Wow, look at all the things that she does to represent us, or for the sellers. Wow, look at all the things she did to help us get ready for a sale. That's what they need to be doing right now. They need the highest amount of visibility and the greatest amount of prospects they possibly can. They need to be building database, because a lot of people aren't going to sell right now, but at some point in the future they will. And the best thing you can be is in their lives now. So when they need you, they'll know exactly who to call.
Yep.
So
That's good stuff. Appreciate the insight. We're going to call it a wrap for this week.
okay, great.
All right. We'll talk to you
Thank you.
later.
Good night, everybody.